And we're actually starting on a lying down pose on our backs, and it's the banana pose. So just to show you the position we're going to get to standing up, eventually one leg will be crossed over. The hands will be over the top of the head, which will be holding on to the wrist gently and taking a little curve in the body, hence the banana. So once you're down on the floor, it's better if you don't actually have anything behind the back of the head, but not impossible. Just take the arms out to the side and then just draw them along the floor until you can take hold of your hands. Now, if you bring the hands forwards and up, you tend to get a little bit sticky in the shoulders. If you take them out to the side, a little bit more chance of them arriving with the hands still attached to the floor. You shimmy your shoulders gently over to the whichever side you want to. So you choose. We'll do both sides. And you hold on to the wrist and pull the arm just a little bit with your hand. So the side that's got the open side gets a little bit more stretch. You want to keep both shoulder blades flat to the floor. So there's a tendency that as you arch your body over, you kind of roll the shoulder out a little bit. So you might need to just move a little bit further back into the center than you think. Once you've settled the shoulders, you do the same with the legs. You just move the feet out to the corner edge. You take one foot out, then slide the other foot out. See how that feels into your nice curve. And then if it feels good, you can cross the ankle over. So if you're leaning out to your left, you would take your right leg over left. Now, if you have sciatic issues, lower back issues, you might find that just crossing the ankles over is a little bit too much, in which case you can bring the feet back so they're both on the floor. And again, just like you've worked on the shoulders, you want to try and keep those two points of pressure on the pelvis, on your buttocks, to feel equal. So if you notice that you're kind of leaning into one buttock a little harder, then again, you might just need to move the feet, just half an inch might be enough to loosen it up. You can turn the head very gently to the way that you're turning the curve into the body, so you're kind of leaning into it, looking into that direction. And hopefully, whilst you're doing all this, the breath is starting to settle a little bit. Breathing into the belly, letting the ribs expand. A slow exhale. It doesn't matter whether you're breathing quickly or slowly. It doesn't matter whether you're breathing in and out longer or the other way around. As long as it feels relaxed. So you're looking for smoothness, a rich, fluid texture to the breath. Allow the mind to settle, focusing on the body, feeling the breath moving through it. Letting the mind slow down. We'll slowly release the hands. Just draw the hands along the floor, back along the side of the body. Shuffle the shoulders back into the center. Move the legs back into that center. Just take a couple of breaths and see if you feel like your body has a natural long line running through it. You need to connect your mind to how your body feels. So without looking, you know where you are on the mat. And then we'll take the arms out to the side again until the hands are directly over the head. You're obviously going to take hold of the opposite wrist this time and just shuffle gently over into that side bend. A little pull onto the wrist so you stretch out the open side a little more. Make sure the shoulders feel balanced. When you're ready, you take the feet gently over to the other side. Again, just have a little pause, see how it feels in your lower back, down the sides of the body, how the nerves feel. Are you still able to breathe smoothly? And if you are and you feel comfortable and want to cross the ankles over, then you can. And then we'll start to shimmy the shoulders back, drawing the hands down alongside the body, untangling the feet, bring ourselves into that long line again. We'll draw one knee at a time in towards the body until you can just place your hands on top of your knees and just rock from side to side a little bit. So you're just starting to kind of massage your spine against the floor very gently, getting a little bit of movement through the lumbar spine as well. And just kind of wriggling out the stretches that we've just held for the last sort of 4 minutes on each side. Going to roll on to whichever side you like to lift from and use the hands to press into the floor to come up onto all fours so that you can bring your head to the front end of the mat. And moving the blocks out of the way that you were sitting on or weren't sitting on, we're going to bring ourselves into Sphinx pose. So we're just going to place the palms down. The elbows are about shoulder distance apart. And ideally, you try not to have your shoulders wrapped up around your ears pulling forwards. You want to, they can still wrap up around the ears, but you drop the chest down in between your shoulders and let the shoulders release down towards the back of the mat. You want to allow the belly to be as soft as you can. And as that loosens off, try and let the buttocks loosen off as well. So you're losing any tension that might be in the spine. Now, if we spend a lot of time sitting or a lot of time standing or just a lot of time in one position, those back muscles get tight, and trying to release them can be a bit of a challenge. It can almost feel uncomfortable to let them go because the natural state of tension in the spine is ever present, and the body kind of gets used to it. And this is the first time that it goes, oh, actually, I haven't been that comfortable all day long. I'm moving to a new place. You'll know it's not scary in your mind. Your body's not quite so convinced. It takes a little time to be happy. One thing that does help is if you let the heels roll out a little bit and the toes roll in. Head position is really optional. You can keep looking forwards, or you can drop the head completely down to the floor, or you can hold it somewhere in between. Wherever you go, you're going to be working those shoulder or upper neck muscles a little bit. So you want to find a place that is comfortable, but not necessarily the same position you've held all day long. So again, if you've been looking down at a laptop, it might be better to lift the head just a fraction. So bring the muscles into a different place. I'm going to slowly let myself come down onto my chest. I'll bring the hands underneath my chin, so the elbows are tucked out to the side. I'll bring the feet onto the center line, so toes touch. I'm going to take my right knee out to the side about 90 degrees to the body, and then let the shin follow the line of the mat. So a nice 90-degree angle there. The toes point out to the side. And I guess I'll turn my head the same direction that I've just moved the leg out to the side. Now I find that easy in my neck. Some people don't. You could make yourself little potato fists and place that underneath the forehead. So whatever works for you. Now that front hip bone that sits over our top of our levis is the one that we're trying to relax down to the floor. That needs all the muscles in your lower back, the hips and the groins to work together in a way that actually releases. Now the muscles tend to work in synergistic packs, so for everyone that's lengthening out, the other side shortening. There's a lot of cooperation having to take place. It's a bit like having a UN meeting in your own body. It can take quite a while to start to feel the body sink. And as you move into a new place, the alarm bells ring again. This is when we try and breathe into the breath for releasing the body. And we'll start to turn the head gently. Bring the foot in towards the thigh and then slide your foot down. It's the easiest, nicest way to stretch the leg out. That means you don't lift the knee off the ground, so you don't put any tension into the hip that you just spent a lot of time releasing. And then when you're ready, you take the left leg out and do exactly the same. Now, you might be lucky that might feel and behave in exactly the same way, or it could be an utterly different experience. You might find that your body releases gradually over the 3 minutes that we're sitting here, or it might drop in stages. Either is perfectly natural, as long as we're able to attach our mind to the muscles and the area that we're focusing on, and surrender to gravity and weight, and just letting the body do its magic. It does know what to do. our minds that tend to get in the way a little bit. Now I'm going to start to allow the head to come into the position, so I'm looking to the floor. I'm going to ease that foot in towards the side and slide the leg out down the mat. Just rotating at the end. I'm going to lift up onto the elbows purely to find my trusty block and bring that pretty much where my chin would be lying. I'm going to roll onto my right side on the center line of the mat and have the legs lengthen out. And I'm going to drop my head onto the block. Now I'm having the block so there's more behind me than there is in front, because as I roll over, my head position will change. The thing I want to be careful of is that I'm not looking down towards my toes, because I start to bend my neck. I'm going to try and keep the body in a long line. I'm simply going to place my hand on top of the other. I'll turn to the right and to move the top leg. The toes come to the floor, and I'm just going to lengthen that out until it feels like it's gone far enough. As soon as it starts to feel like it's stretching a little bit, that's more than okay. I'm going to bend the bottom leg and bring the heel towards my back, coming into cat's tail. I'm going to use the toes a little bit to kind of walk the heel in a little closer. And then I'm going to start to draw the top hand around towards my chest. I'm going to roll the shoulders down towards the floor. And then when I think I've got a chance, I'm going to see if I can take that hand down, find my foot, and just help draw it in towards my bottom a little closer. Now, the shoulders are trying to get down flat to the floor. The thing that stops us rolling over is the leg that's extended out. So that's our sort of counterbalance. Ideally, the hips would be stacked so that the hip bone is pointing up directly towards the sky. And then eventually, as the shoulders move into position, you might get to the point where the chest puts to the ceiling also. It's just letting gravity. So in theory, if you are just a little bit off the floor with your shoulders, you've got gravity and body weight still working on you. If you're actually flat to the ground, then you're able to move into the pose very easily. And you're not really working the spine in quite the same way. So being able to hover is actually a benefit. And take a little breath here. And then we'll release. Now, if you're struggling to find your foot back there, you can hold on to the trousers, or if you have a strap handy, you could use that as well. Now, you can just roll onto your second side as long as you can see the screen. I'm going to lift up and just transfer over, purely because I have one clock and it's on one side of the room. So we're going to come down onto the side body again, legs are lengthened out straight, head stays in line, hand on top of hand. Take the top leg out, big toe on the floor, just resting. A slow bend of the bottom leg, so bending at the knee, and just toeing in a little closer, the foot towards the bottom. When you feel ready, drawing the top arm along the arm over the chest. Let the shoulders sink to the floor a little bit. Take the hand back and see if you can connect. Now I do have to lift a little bit and then I can rest back in. So don't be afraid to do the same. Make the moves smooth and subtle and on an exhalation. So there aren't any sudden surprises in the body. And then I'm going to gently let myself release. We'll come back into seating posture. So when you're on your side, draw the knees in towards your chest and use your hands to press into the floor as you exhale to lift up. So a nice, smooth, easy movement. I'm going to come into a pose called butterfly. I'm going to move my block towards the front of the mat just for a little bit further down the class. I'm going to have the legs out in front, and I'm just going to wriggle and let the flesh kind of move around underneath the sitting bones. And then we're going to come into a butterfly pose, which requires me to bring the soles of my feet together and let the knees hang out to the side. Now, there's about the same distance through the knee line to the groin as there is the knee line to the heels. So it's almost like a diamond shape in front. The reason I don't bring the feet in closer is if I do that, the knees just lift up and then the spine starts to round and doesn't really benefit the pose. Now that last little rock out on the cheeks, and then bring the hands onto the shins. I'm going to just think about lifting my body up out of the pelvis, fold my hips over my thighs, and let myself round down. Now I'm coming down very slowly over probably 5, 6, 7 breaths. So easing into the spine, seeing how it feels. Some parts of the spine and the muscles might feel still tight, even though we've had a little bit of a stretch in some areas. Some people like to keep the elbows on the inside. Some people like to take the elbows on the outside. Some people like to bring their hands underneath their legs and bring their elbows down to the floor. some people get to the point where their nose touches their toes because they bend over so far. Now, all of us have got different bodies, so you might be quite a lot higher than me. You might be a little bit lower than me, but it's going to feel the same in your body as it does to mine. Eventually, you're going to let the head hang as well and try and soften off the shoulders a little bit. Now, finding space into the belly to breathe. Just allow your body to follow its instincts. If you're able to breathe into your belly, fine. If you breathe more into your shoulders, that's okay as well. Again, we're looking to let the body yield into place. And you'll be able to feel this in the spine, the hips, and the legs. And we'll use the hands to guide ourselves back out of that pose. So that was a genuine forward bend. I'm going to take caterpillar, which might look like it's a full forward bend, but it's really not. I'm not really sure how you categorize it, but I wouldn't categorize it as a full-on seated forward bend. First of all, we're just going to have the legs out in front. Just move the flesh around a little bit. And the first thing I'm going to do is tilt the pelvis back. So start to let the lower spine round, and the top of my shoulders will kind of follow. And the chin, rather than going towards the toes, just rocks down into my lap. Now I'm able to get down far enough that I can pretty much bring my elbows onto my thighs. And sitting on the floor, I don't have to worry too much about the back of the knees. They're not being pushed drastically into the ground. Now this will encourage breath into the back of the shoulders. We don't hold it for too long. If the feet kind of roll out a little bit, the legs turn, that's okay. It's your natural sitting posture. And we'll use the hands again to press into the floor on an exhale, just to open the spine up a little bit. I'm going to take the hands behind just a fraction and start to lift my chest up towards the sky, just retracting the shoulder blades back and squeezing them together a little bit, just to let the body know that it can move forwards and backwards. Lift back up and then take the feet out as wide as you comfortably can. So if you've been a ballerina in the previous life, you can do the splits. If you're a normal average person, you're probably a little bit less than a right angle. That's fine. Okay, just float a little bit from side to side on those sitting bones, so we move a little bit more onto the front edge. I'm going to turn my body to line up, so my chest is looking towards my left knee. So that's the way I've turned. I'll take the hands about shoulder distance apart, and then I'm going to lift the body up and fold over that thigh. Now this leg can kind of roll out, twist in, twist out, do all sorts of things. The knee might need to bend a lot. We're taking the hands forwards gradually and trying to get to a point where our chest touches our thigh. Now, I've probably got about another 30 or 40 years of yoga practice to absorb into my body before my chest actually gets down to where my thigh is. I could obviously lift my thigh up. But as long as you feel comfortable, then that's great. The leg that sort of you're ignoring, that lengthens out to the other side, can kind of grip on and hold on as you're stretching the leg that you're leaning over in this straddle pose. See if you can kind of let that just ease off a little bit. And the reason we have the hands a little wider than the shoulders is, for many of us, when we come into this, we kind of roll out to the side a little bit. So it just helps with balance. Makes us feel more confident, and then that in turn allows us to breathe more easily. Now I'm going to use the hands to push back up. Bring the hands out in front and just lengthen the spine up for a moment. Again, I'm trying to let the groins and the hips relax. There's a tendency in my body to feel like I'm rolling back. So fingers on the floor really do help. Let's take a little breath and then rotate the body to the opposite leg. When you're ready, lift the body up out of the pelvis, fold over and out and down. Try and relax the leg as you lean into it. Let it find its own point. Your body naturally has a destination in mind when you start to move in certain directions. Remember, the outstretched leg is soft and relaxed. Maybe it feels deeper or shallower on this side. That's just an experience, an observation. Understanding how your body moves, the shapes it can and can't make. I'm going to use the hands again to lift myself up. Turn the body so facing down the center line. Take the hands underneath the legs. I'm just going to bend one leg at a time. Bring those legs back in. So the groins and the hips have done a lot of work. Facing towards the front of the mat, I'm going to roll onto all fours. So I'm able to tuck my ankles underneath and come onto my shins. But whatever you get there works. It's all valid. Make sure that the fingers are nicely spread out. Middle finger is approximately pointing forwards. Hands and wrists are definitely underneath the shoulders, not forwards. You can roll the shoulders back a little bit. Knees about hip distance apart. And we're just going to maraud a little bit from side to side. So I'm just swinging my tailbone from side to side. Shoulders are following a little bit of movement through the neck as well. And then I'm coming back into the center. Going to start to draw the chest forwards, rolling the shoulders back, tailbone up towards the sky, and then tilt the pelvis the opposite way, so pubic bone down towards the floor. And then draw the belly into the spine, let the head drop, press into the hands and the shins. It's as easy as that. Smoothness is what we're looking for. It doesn't have to be big. Exhale in and out. That smooth transaction from one direction to the other and moving through just puts a lot of juice into all the places it needs to go into in the spine. I'm going to take the knees a little wider and sit my bottom down onto my heels. I'm going to let the elbows come to the ground and the forehead touches the floor. I'll draw the belly in and lift back up onto all fours, just bringing the shoulders over the wrists. The knees stay wide, and then I send myself back, gently exhaling. Elbows, forehead to the ground. Inhale up, slightly rounded back as I draw the belly in to lift up. Into that neutral position, I sit back again. And let myself sink. I'll come up one more time on the exhale with a rounded spine. Bring the knees back underneath. Make sure the hands are underneath the shoulders, tuck the toes underneath. Allow myself to lift the knees gently away from the floor and bring myself into that down dog. So I'm going to walk the legs out. You can do that as well if you wish. You can take any version of down dog that feels good in your body. For me, just walking out at this time of the evening feels nice. The heels don't quite touch the floor. The heels do line up behind the ankles. The feet are in line, the legs are in line with the body. Able to turn the armpits down towards the ground a little bit to keep the shoulders nice and free. And then I'll come back into a plank, dropping the knees down to the floor, taking the knees wide again, toes together. I'm sitting back into my child's position. This time I'm going to walk the hands forwards to draw the body out, keeping the elbows off the ground, and just walk the hands over to the right side, keeping them about shoulder distance apart. So the ribs and the thighs are touching together. And lift the head a little. Walk the hands over to the opposite side. And coming back into the center. I'm going to lift myself back into the down dog. So roll the shoulders back, bring the knees underneath. I'm only going to be there for a little while. Once I'm in down dog position, I'll draw the right knee in towards the chest. Bring the foot through between the hands, try and line the fingers and toes up on the front edge of the mat. And then I'm going to drop the back knee down onto the floor. You keep the hands on the ground or come onto fists if that makes it a little bit easier to breathe. And I'm going to simply let the hips sink down. I'm going to try and lift the chest, draw the belly in. The front knee might travel forwards just fractionally. As long as it doesn't go past the toes, we're still safe. So quite a big stretch through the groins. Now I'm going to bring the hands to the floor and step back into that down dog. I'm going to tuck the toe on the back foot, lift the knee, slide the foot back. You could come onto all fours and do the same. And draw from down dog, my left knee in, bring the foot through. Take a little time to get yourself organized. You might even need to use the hands to get there. Again, come up onto the knuckles if that's easiest, and try and lift the chest a little. And let yourself sink the hips down towards the floor. So it's a big stretch on the hip that you're leaning into, but it's also a stretch on the groin and the front hip flexor on the rear leg. Try and keep the belly drawn into the spine. Now I'll bring the hands to the floor. I'm going to move back into my down dog. Remember, tabletop movement is fine. The right knee is going to come in this time. And same position. I'm dropping the back knee down onto the floor gently and then bringing the hands onto the front thigh. I'm going to slowly lift up so I look after my spine and draw the chest up out of the pelvis. And then when I get upright, I can let the hands come off the thigh. Take them out to the side and lift the hands gently above the shoulders. Palms face in, fingers lift, belly is drawn in, pressing down into the back thigh a little. I'm going to ease the hands down to the floor. And again, I'm going to move back into my down dog. It's my choice. Tabletop is always there. Any way that you get into a position where you can come into a lunge on the second side works for me. Knee comes down, hands come onto the shin. It's a slow transaction. Just check in that the knee is over the ankle, not forwards. Lift the spine up. Find balance in the hips. Take the hands out wide and lift to the sky. Now, balance in the front leg actually comes from the big toe being attached to the ground. So if you're rolling out to the side a little bit, you'll find it more tricky. Try and get the big toe joint down into the floor. It's a little bit of pressing down. Last couple of breaths. I'll bring the hands back down to the floor. Again, I'm stepping back into my down dog. Now this one's fun. I'm going to take the right foot to the outside of the right hand. So I'm going off mat. And then you can either stay in this position with the back knee off the floor, press out through the heel, draw the belly in, lift the chest forwards and out, or you can sink the back knee down onto the floor. Now, both of them work, but working slightly different muscles. You might find one easier than the other. The knee raise probably generate a little bit more heat in the body. It's not to say that one is better or doing more than the other. The knee will start to slowly move out to the side a little bit as it gets more used to being in this position. That's fine. Try to bring the pelvis over the center line of the mat. So think about where your pubic bone is in the center line. So move yourself directly, or more directly over that if you've moved off at all. It can quite often happen when the hips are a little bit tight and we move into this lizard pose, taking the foot to the outside. The sort of derriere follows and joins on, tags along behind. The belly's still drawing in. We're pressing down through the hands so the fingers are getting quite a big stretch. All of the knuckles are touching the ground. I'm going to take a little breath from there. Lift the back knee, slide myself back into my down dog. And take a couple more breaths here. And then take the opposite, so left knee to the outside, or sorry, left foot to the outside of the left hand. And then drop myself back down to the floor because that's where I like to be. So if you did knee off the ground, you'd do that on both sides to keep it even. Now this time I'm not coming back into down dog. I'm simply going to wiggle my left foot back and come onto my knees. Sitting down onto my heels, I'm going to take my flat block and just bring that behind my feet. I'm going to come into a squat, placing the heels onto the corner edges of the mat. So I bring the hands forwards, allow the toes to tuck under. So you want to have the feet about the same distance apart as the block so that you can put the heels on the corner edges. You might need to move it around a little bit. And as you land, you can then softly and gently just wriggle the feet out into your comfy place. Now you might be a lot higher. You might need to keep the fingers on the floor so you're leaning forwards a little bit, feeling a little bit more safety from being attached with 4 points of contact. You're able to bring the arms to rest directly on top of the knees and lift the chest a little bit. So you sink a little bit deeper into the pose, but it does take a little bit of confidence and you might be sort of hovering between the two places. The belly is drawn in, the shoulders are nice and broad if you're high like I am. I mean physically. Now we're going to be here for about another 30 seconds or so. So we're still feeling some stretching going on through the hips. From this squat pose, we will eventually move into a down dog. And we're going to take a pigeon pose, but it's going to be a very low-lying version of it. We're going to try and get the chest close to the ground. So just the last sort of 10 seconds or so of breathing here. Can you get a little bit burny on that front ligament with the ankle and the shin? The sheath that the tendons run through, so the ligaments and tendons can get a little bit warm. Bring the hands to the floor again, and this time I'm going to lift into a down doggy position, just walking the hands forwards and just pushing gently my block out with one leg. I'll bring the toes onto the center line of the mat, and I start on the left side. I'm going to draw my left knee into my chest and bring the knee to the outside of my wrist and bring the heel underneath my groin. I'm going to walk the right foot back and just slide that out, and that brings my hips a little closer to the ground. Now if there's any burning sensation in the hips, knees or ankles, let yourself to lift out until it stops, goes away. As long as you're okay and you're sinking down to the floor, See if you can then bring your elbows onto the ground. Take a little breath. Let the elbows go out wide and see if you can lie down so that your head, forehead, is just resting on the back of your hands. Letting the chest sink to the floor. Once you've done that, you're going to lengthen your right leg, the rear one, as far away as you can, and it will feel like the knee is just about to lift off the ground, and that's all you need to do. So you could be still quite high, that's fine. But if you've got the range of movement in the hips and the knees and everything's okay to come down low, then join me. I'm trying to keep the hips stable. So notice if you're rolling off to the side and see if you are, what do you have to move in your body to bring yourself back into a stable position. I've just got a couple more breaths here. And draw the belly in, bring ourselves back up onto our elbows. Hands come underneath the shoulders. We roll the shoulders back, tap the toe on the back foot, and ease ourselves back into that down dog. So again, you bring the feet onto the center line. We don't stay here long. We just stretch out once, then draw the right knee in towards the chest. Come forwards, just slide the knee to the outside. You might not get there quite the same way as I do, but as long as you end up in the same position, that's fine. Walk the left foot back as far as we can. Stretching out, just letting that hip release down to the floor. And then see if you can come down onto the elbows. And if that feels okay, take the hands underneath the forehead and the elbows out wide and just lay yourself down and lengthen that long left leg away. Now the last sort of couple of inches that you come into that, you're going to feel a much bigger stretch in the hamstring if you come all the way down as I have to the ground. Unless you've got naturally very long hamstrings. I'm going to come out of this slightly differently. I'm going to come onto the elbows. Allow yourself to roll into that front thigh so your bottom comes down to the floor, and then bring your hands underneath. You might be able to just draw the left leg forward slowly. And we're back into a seated posture. We're going to take the knees high and the hands behind and just draw the belly in a little bit. Roll the spine down into the ground. And we're going to come into Shavasana. So my block I know is behind me. I'd like to use that behind the head. You could use a cushion or an old blanket. Or you can have it flat to the floor. I'm going to wriggle the shoulders underneath and the hips and lengthen my spine out. So all the natural curves get as flat as I can let them become. Now, if the spine feels like it's done a lot of work, if the muscles feel tight and tired, take the feet wide, let the knees come together, being high. Little TP. It opens out the lower back muscles. It brings your pelvis into a really nice neutral position. It's very soothing for your body, even if it feels a bit unusual. If you feel okay to take the feet out and slide the heels out to the corner edges of the mat, you can do. Notice that, well, maybe you can't, but I can tell you, I keep my heels attached to the floor as they lengthen out. Lifting the feet off the ground just kind of tenses your whole body up again. You're putting tension in that we've just spent 50 odd minutes letting go of. So try to get to the habit of being a bit of a slinky moving around. Let the toes hang out, eyes closed. Soften the jaw. And all we need to do is return to the breath. Starts low in the belly and moves gently into the collarbones. Soft exhale. You might find it nice to breathe in through the nose and exhale out through the mouth a few times. So a deeper kind of sigh. Your choice. So start to stretch out fingers and toes. Let the wrists and the ankles have a little bit of a wriggle as well. Breathe a little deeper into the chest. And then use that energy to stretch out on an exhale, whatever feels good. Just follow your instincts. And eventually, draw one leg at a time back into the body so you can give yourself the gentlest of hugs. You might just want to rock on the spine a little bit or paint circles with the knees in the sky. Or just give yourself a little bit more of a hug. When you're ready, you're going to roll onto your right side of your body and stay in that curled up position and let yourself just sink into the floor. And then finally we'll use the hands to press down into the floor and exhale to assist us back up to sitting. Come into a posture that feels comfortable. Use props, don't use props, whatever feels right. Let yourself lengthen out through the spine a little bit, just get a bit more of a wriggle, and then bring the hands in towards your heart. We'll take a deeper breath here. And as we close the eyes, we'll start to gently draw the belly in and bow down gently to the floor to seal our practice for the evening. And as the breath comes back into the body, we'll use that to build the spine for us. Eventually lifting the head and opening the eyes. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me.